All right, one of the other rights that you get is this thing called water rights. You have water rights that as a property owner may come with your land. So let's go over, there are two types of water rights that you guys need to know and understand. There are, according to what we consider, there's only two types of water. There are rivers, all right? A river has riparian water rights. Notice the R for river and R for riparian. So when someone says, I have riparian rights, you know that that means there's a river somewhere on their property, because that's the rights that's granted to them. So here's my river. I have been accused of this looking like a highway. That's actually a river with a middle line, all right? Now, when someone has riparian rights, there's actually two types of riparian rights, and that depends on what kind of river it really is, okay? According to the Coast Guard, it's not our decision, and there are some other people that can get involved, court systems and environment, the EPA, but basically outside of our control, they will dictate this river as either being navigable. Everybody know what that means? I can get a boat down it, like the Ohio River, all right? Think of the Ohio River. That's truly a river. It's navigable. There's boats that go down it. There's barges that go down it. If you have riparian rights on a river where you can get a boat down it, your rights end at the shoreline of the river. I have riparian rights, but they end at the shoreline. If you cannot get a boat down it, which we would probably call a creek, right? Or is it a crick? Creek? What do you call it? Creek? What do you call it? Creek? Who calls it a crick? Anybody? Yeah. You from West Virginia? No. Some, you know, creek and crick, and it's like, you pronounce the capital of Kentucky Louisville or Louisville? You pronounce it Frankfurt. My kids love it. So it's so good when you have 6 kids, you get to use all those. You guys seen the YouTube channel called Dad Jokes? How does dinosaurs pay their bills? With a Tyrannosaurus checks. If the boat can go down it, I only own to the bank. That makes sense. Because if there's boats out in the water, I don't want to be responsible for them. If you can't get a boat down it, you own to the middle line of the river. All right? I know it sounds confusing, but think about it. Logically, it makes sense. If I can get a boat down it, I don't want to deal with the water, so I only own to the bank. If it's a creek or a crick or a stream or a brook, and it's really small and I can't get a boat down it according to the Coast Guard, then I own to the middle of the river, and the other guy owns to the middle of the river, and we take care of our respective parts. All right? So that's called your riparian rights. If you're given riparian rights because you've got a creek down the middle or as a boundary of one of your property line, and they say, okay, it's non-navigable, means I can't get a boat down it, so I own to the middle of the creek. That's my property line, it's the middle of the creek. If they say, well, it's a navigable river, like you bought property on the edge of the Ohio, and you have riparian rights, okay, I only own to the bank. Someone else will take care of the river, the feds, which is why you can get gambling in Indiana, because it's in federal water. It's not state water. All right? The other kind of water that we deal with is a lake or a pond or a retention pond or whatever you want to call it. Lakes have littoral rights. Corps of Army Engineers, the Federal Energy Department, the DNR, those are all the people that can determine if it's navigable. Usually it's the Coast Guard. But if it's a lake, you have littoral rights, you only own to the average high water mark, like Lake Michigan. You would only own, you have littoral rights on a lake, you only own to the high water mark. Someone else, the government, Army Corps of Engineers, somebody else owns the lake. Now, if you start selling lakefront property like Lake Lemon, Raccoon Lake, Princess Lake, this becomes important because you got to find out what kind of property rights your buyer's getting. Are they getting littoral rights? Are they getting riparian rights? What are they getting? Are they getting rights to the river? Are they getting, well, we haven't got to it yet. Pertinent, I don't want to talk about it yet. Now, you can gain and lose land on both of these. I can gain land when soil deposits right here, right? That is called accretion. Accretion. It sounds like the word increase. So as the soil deposits on my side of the bank, I'm gaining land through accretion. Sounds like increase. That's the way to remember it. I can also lose land as the water eats that away through erosion. I used to own 3 feet out there. Now the water's eroding it, and it's now only own 2 feet. I lost some land. So accretion is increase. Erosion, we pretty much know already, is erode. And then there's one last big word I want to talk about. It's called avulsion. Avulsion is a sudden loss of land, like a mudslide or Hurricane Sandy. Is that the one that changed the coastline up on the East Coast? Yeah, where it, it came in and now it rearranged, and I may have lost 30 feet on my beachfront property. The water's up, and I only own to the average high water mark, so the water came up, and I lost a bunch of land all at one time. That's an avulsion. You live on a hill, and you get a mudslide, and you lose a bunch of, it's now sitting down in his property in the ravine down there. That's an avulsion. It's a sudden removal of land. Then the last water right there is this thing called the doctrine, which means law, of prior, which means before, appropriation, which means taking. The doctrine of prior appropriation. In some states, water is so important to the state, Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, Arizona, that the water that runs through the creek is not yours. That creek could run through the middle of your living room. It's still not your water because the state needs that water. They have appropriated all of the water that will ever go through there in the future and in the past through this doctrine of prior appropriation. And I can't remember. It's either, is it Snake River or Colorado River? Runs into Phoenix. Colorado. You can't dam the Colorado River or siphon water off to water your cows because now Phoenix doesn't have any water. So that state uses this thing called the doctrine of prior appropriation. I may own the bed and the soil, but the water's not mine. I can't siphon water off to water my crops or to feed my cattle or to drink or to whatever.
Rain barrels in collection has become an issue as well that I've read
Rain barrels.
Well, collecting water that would go into those natural creeks that's then owned by.
Yeah, I could see where that, if you're up in the mountain and you collect water and you're stopping the water from feeding into the river, which feeds into, that could be an issue. I could see that. You are really desperate for some water, but yeah, I don't know. The other day in Phoenix, what was it, 135 in Death Valley? If you were in 135 degree weather, a few drops of rainwater might make a difference. Any questions about water rights? So you got riparian for the rivers, and there's two of them. You either own to the middle or to the bank. And then you've got littoral, which is for the lake. All right? All right, let's move to the next one.